This episode of Fishing Gurus is in association with Shimano Commercial Rods.
Welcome to episode 2 of Fishing Gurus, where I'm joined once again by top angler Steve Ringer. We're back at the Arons Lake complex and we're sitting on the larger of the two pools today, which is stuffed full of carp. What we want to show you is two new cutting edge tactics. So once I've got this one in the net, I'll be popping around to Steve to get inside his mind. Steve, I notice there's no feeder on your rig today. Talk me through your approach.
Well, I've got a very simple, what we call a straight lead approach. The way it works is as follows. I've got a little mini lead clip, and then inside the lead clip I've got a snap link swivel, which I'll deal with in a second. Then as you can see, I've got a little square lead. It's a 2/3 of an ounce square pair. And attached to the snap link swivel, I've got a 12-inch mono hook link. That's about 9 pound breaking strain. And I've got a size 12 QM1 hook, which is tied using the knotless knot. And instead of having your conventional loop at the end of the knotless knot, which you'd normally like for attaching boilies, I've got a little bait band, which I've just wrapped around that 8mm hard pellet.
Yep, okay.
So a nice simple setup.
So what's the advantage of using a lead clip?
The lead clip system's nice and simple. It doesn't tangle, and also from a fish welfare issue, it's very safe. As in, if your main line does break, the snap link swivel can just pull out from the bottom of the lead clip, so it means the fish isn't going to be left tethered. Okay. So it works quite differently to what the carp lead clips do, as in which they're designed to discharge the lead. This isn't designed to discharge the lead, it's designed from a fish welfare point of view to stop the fish trailing the lead about. Okay,
so you're getting all the effects of the bolt, but it's safe at the same time?
Yes, very much.
Okay, what about your feeding today? So you've got an array of pellets on your side tray here.
Yeah, I'm fishing a method that's recently come about in the last 2 years called the pellet cone. It basically involves a little plastic cone like so, taking some of these 3mm wetted pellets, compressing them inside the cone. You can compress them as hard as you like so, and then taking a little needle, it's basically like a little baiting needle with a hook latch on it.
Okay.
Passing that through.
So going through the thick end first, out through the thin end?
Yeah, which that might seem the wrong way to do it, but I'll explain my reasoning behind that in a second. Then taking a hook length, I've got a few made up here. We've got the loop which attached to the snap link swivel. So now I've got my little hook on the end of my needle. Mm-hmm. Pass the needle into the loop, pull it back through.
And your hook bait's already attached to your rig there?
Yeah, I'm going to pull the hook bait right up into the bottom of the cone. And then it's just a case pushing the cone out, like so. And you've got it, completed cone, ready to be cast out. The idea obviously is that hits the bottom, those micro pellets break down, and you've got a big pile of micro pellets right on top of your hook bait. You know, I mean, straight lead is a really effective way of fishing, but when you add the cone to it, you're really taking it to a whole new level.
Right, okay. So now that's ready to go, how do you attach it to the rig?
Right, let's just put that down. What I'll do is unclip the snap link swivel, take off the old, well, not the old hook length so to speak, but the other hook length, attach the one with the cone on.
Just onto the loop?
Yeah, I've just got a loop tied in the end of the hook length. Couldn't be any simpler.
Let's just have a look at that.
That's now ready to be cast out.
Right, okay.
So let's get that cast out into the swim.
So are you fishing to the clip there or just casting?
No, I'm feeding quite a wideish area with 11mm pellets. So I'm just casting it sort of in almost like a 10 metre square.
Okay, so I see that's landed, I see the lead and the cone land separately there. So talk me through your bait choices here and specifically the pellets that you're using to form the cone.
Well, I've got 3mm wetted down pellets. The way I do that is literally take a 2-pint tub, fill the tub with pellets, so you've got about an inch of gap, then literally fill the tub up with water, turn it upside down with the lid on, and then just leave it for like 30 minutes, and you'll end up with pellets like so, nice and softened, just like that. I mean, and they want to grip together, and they're perfect for fishing the pellet cone.
Okay, and the size of pellet?
Size, they're 3mm, anything from 1 to 3mm pellet, ideal for the cone. You do want a pellet that's quite sticky. If you do have problems with the pellets breaking up, maybe on the cast, a little tip is, for a pint of pellets, teaspoonful of soya flour. That helps, gives them sort of binding properties and help them stick together.
Right, good tip. So in effect, when that rig's hit the bottom, what you're ending up with is a small pile with a tiny hook bait on top.
Yeah, exactly right. I'm just giving my hook bait the maximum attraction. So I'm loose feeding hard pellets, which are laying there individually. I want the fish to home in on my hook bait first. So a little pile of micro pellets broken down around it. It just gives it that extra bit of pulling power.
Yeah, sure. And is hook bait choice important?
I'm a big believer in sort of fishing what I'm feeding. So I'm feeding 11mm today. So I'm actually alternating between an 11mm hard pellet or an 8mm hard pellet.
Okay.
I mean, it's just a case of mixing it up. I mean, I do find the 11mm tend to pick out the bigger fish being a bigger bait. So if I'm catching a lot of small fish, I'll tend to stick with the 8mm. If I'm waiting for bites, I'd rather fish an 11mm, maybe wait and hopefully get a bigger fish.
I see you got loads of these orange pellet cones on your side tray here. Why so many?
What I like to do is, like while I'm waiting for a bite, what I'll do is flick the bait runner on my reel. So obviously if I do get a bite, the bait runner's going to give line. I haven't got to worry about that so much. And then while I'm waiting for a bite, I literally make some cones up in advance. So it's literally compress the pellets, push the needle through, and then I've got like 4 or 5 hook lengths on the go just here, like
okay,
ready baited up.
Meaning you can wind in, clip a new one onto the system, cast straight back out.
Yeah, it's all about the more time you spend in the water, the more fish you're going to catch. So it means when I catch a fish or reel in, it's just a case of clipping another cone, unclipping the hook length, clipping another cone on, casting back out. I'm just going to be maximising time spent in the water. You know what I mean? The more time, as I've said, you spend in the water, the more chance you've got of getting a bite. So often I've got a couple ready here, a couple more ready to do. So it just means I'm doing something while I'm waiting for a bite,
yeah,
rather than sat there doing nothing. I'm keeping nice and busy.
Yeah, great stuff. Top tip, Steve. Hope you're all taking notes. Let's have a look at my approach.
Well, I've joined Alex in his swim, and I noticed straight away, although his rig's very similar to mine, his actual presentation of bait's very different, and he's got several little PVA bags made up. I've always thought of PVA bags as being primarily for carp anglers and maybe being too slow for the match style of things, but I guess you're going to show me different.
Yeah, as you said, it was a tactic that was established for fishing for specimen-sized carp, but it's really filtered through into the commercial match scene. It's something that you and I do quite a lot of. And it allows you to put a compact amount of attraction around your hook bait by using a small bag literally hooked on.
Yeah, so similar sort of presentation almost to the pellet cone that I'm using, but in a different manner.
Yeah, and the difference is you can use all manner of baits with PVA. You can use large pellets, small pellets, even wet baits like ground bait.
Right, so is the ground bait just mixed with water? Because I know a lot of people think, oh, water, PVA, it's going to dissolve it.
Well, this is one of the bags here I've tied for today. The ground bait is mixed only with water, but as the particles in the ground bait absorb the wet mix, they tend not to dissolve the PVA. It's perfect for, you know, cold water sessions when you only want to be feeding a tiny amount of bait. You can nick a little tiny bag on like this, real small hook bait, and then sit and wait for bites. It can often be the difference between getting one and not.
Right, I notice you've got your PVA tube and kit there. Just run us through what type of PVA you're actually using, how you go about making the bag, and also what you're looking for as regards to perfect bag size. Yeah,
sure. I mean, notoriously PVA is quite slow melting, but because our fishing is very fast and furious, we want a mesh that melts really quickly. My choice is for the speed mesh system. Regards actually forming a bag, the first thing you need to do is tie a small knot in the end, fill with your desired bait. I like to use a mixture of 4mm and 8mm supermarine halibuts. Allow some PVA to spill from the end and form a single overhand loop. Keeping your finger inside the mesh allows you to draw the bag down tight, and this is really important. The tighter the bag, the quicker it will melt in water. Hold that with thumb and forefinger and draw the knot tight. Repeat the process to form another knot.
I guess that just gives you your starting point for your next bag.
Exactly. Trim between the two. That bag's now ready to use, and I can crack straight on with making another bag.
Would you always make, like, they look very small bags, Would you ever make a bigger PVA bag, or would you always keep it that sort of standard size?
Generally, because in warmer water I'll be loose feeding over the top, I'm looking to create the attraction around the hook bait. So this is the sort of size hook bait that I use more often than not. As we touched on, when it's really cold, this is more what I'm looking for.
So you will vary it a bit, that's what you're trying to say?
Certainly, yeah. And also vary the baits that are inside it.
All right, just show us now how you go about attaching the bag. Is it a case you're just hooking it on, or?
There are a couple of different ways of attaching it. I know a lot of people like to use sort of a closed clasp needle, pull the hook length through, but for speed and ease, I simply like to just hook it on.
Right.
The first point to note is to always hook the furthest point away from the knots. So by passing the hook through the mesh, you hook it, spin the bag, and hook a second time.
Right.
And that's it, simple as that. That'll stay on, I'll cast out, it'll hit the bottom, mesh will break down, I'll be left with a compact pile of bait, round my hook bait, and hopefully catch one.
How long do you think that'll take to break down?
Depends on the temperature of water. In the summer, this mesh melts really quickly. You're looking at about 15 seconds.
Yeah, because I know a lot of people worry about how long it's going to take to break down, reducing the chance of getting quick bites, but that's definitely not the case.
Not with this mesh, no.
Right. Right, now you've got that bag hooked on, how about you get cast out and then just talk us through what you do while you're actually waiting for a bite?
Yeah, sure. I think it's really important, especially, you know, to maximise your session, to have a number of bags tied up, ready to go. These are all attached to hook lengths, as you'll see.
So it's all about saving time?
Exactly.
All right, well at that point, you know, when I want to get back to my swim, as we're both from sort of a match fishing background, how about we have a little challenge, pound for the biggest fish?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, I'm getting back. Because I fish a lot of highly pressured commercial fisheries, I'm always looking for an edge as in regards to my actual baits. And one edge that I've really caught a lot of fish on over the last sort of 12 months is what I call blown pellets. Basically, they involve turning hard 8mm pellets such as these into what I call blown up pellets, which as you can see are almost double the size. The idea behind this is to try and make the pellets appear as though they've been on the bottom a lot longer. So a lot of anglers are firing in 8mm, but then they fish a standard hard 8mm on the hook. Well, once that pellet's been on the bottom, say, I don't know, 5–10 minutes, it starts to expand in size. So by putting a pellet on that's already blown up, like so, I'm giving an impression it's been on the bottom a lot longer and it's therefore safe. Preparing these blown pellets couldn't be any easier. All you need is a pellet pump, take a handful of the required pellets, this is just an 8mm coarse pellet, put them in the pump, just add some water, place the lid on. I'm just going to pump the pellets like so. What this does is draws the air out the pellets and helps the water get in. In other words, it helps them actually expand. Once you feel the pump reach maximum pressure, just release the valve at the top, and it's a case just draining the water off. So I'm just going to leave them with just enough water to cover them, just like so. Take a little bit more off there actually. So once they've been pumped, you leave them 30 minutes and they come out looking just like these, nice and soft, doubled in size. You can fish one or two on a hair and can't find them absolutely irresistible.
This episode of Fishing Gurus is in association with Shimano Commercial Rods.
Well, welcome back. Steve and I have really managed to get the swims rocking now. Through regular feeding, we're both catching carp on a regular basis. Already we've had quite a few big fish. I've also fed another area down the edge to give me a little chance later on. Already the pound's looking good for me from Mr. Ringer. I've had a few nice commons. How's your swim shaping up, Steve?
Well, I think I've just netted the golden nugget fish, because I haven't seen anything in your landing net that's as big as this.
I beg to differ. So what about feeding, Steve? Are you still loose feeding 11mm over the top?
Yeah, I've probably fed about 2 pints of 11mm now. It's not about feeding lots and lots of bait. It's about keeping the bait going in. So I'm feeding like 4 or 5 pellets twice every time I cast out, then probably waiting like sort of 2.5 minutes for a bite.
Yeah.
So you don't need lots and lots of bait, to catch a big weight of fish. It's just a question of the frequency of feeding.
What do you think about the noise that the pellets are making? Do you think that's attracting the fish as well?
Yeah, definitely. That's where the actual frequency of feeding comes in.
Here we go. This is another one.
Feels like a good one, or?
Doesn't feel like a pound fish.
No.
but they're all good fun to catch.
What about yourself? Have you been feeding the swim in a similar manner, or?
Yeah, well, I'm actually feeding 8 mils instead of 11 mils. I'm actually fishing a little bit shorter than you as well. I'm just trying to group the feed tightly and then just fish a little PVA bag in amongst it.
Yeah. The 11 mils come, you know what I mean, worth talking about, because they can be a big advantage, especially if there's anglers on every swim on your fishery and you can feed and fish a little bit further out.
Yeah.
It's going to give you an edge over those around you. You know what I mean? And a lot of people think 11 mil pellets are too big for like £3–4 pound carp, but that's not the case. If you look at the size of a carp's mouth, it will get an 11 mil pellet in it, no problems at all.
Yeah, that's the thing, not to be scared of big baits. Often we use, you know, double 8 mil, even double 11 mil pellet as hook baits. What's been the best for you today, hook bait wise?
I've just alternated. I think like now we've got the pound side bet. I'm trying to concentrate on the 11 mil with the principle, big bait equals big fish. But you know, often it can, you know, when the reverse can be true, and it might be a small pellet that produces that Barney rubble that nets me your precious pound coin.
What about the strength of hook length you're using?
I'm actually using 0.22 hook length, which is about £9. You know what I mean? That might seem quite heavy, you know what I mean, to some, but like the hook length's coming under a lot of pressure,
Yeah.
catching a lot of fish. It's sort of rubbing against the landing net frame, around the fish's fins. So it pays to step up with your hook length, you know what I mean, on this sort of venue where you're going to be catching a lot of fish. Otherwise, you're going to find every now and again you're going to get broken.
Yeah, I mean, for the 8 and 11 mil pellets that we're using, a size 12 QM1 is the perfect match, isn't it, to that sort of bait?
Yeah, it's largely about trying to match hook size to hook to the pellet. So like, you know, and I wouldn't use a size 12 hook, for instance, with a 6 mil pellet.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, or even a 4 mil bait, you know what I mean? But like when we're fishing like big 8, 11 mil baits, a size 12 hook's perfect.
Well, have a quick look at this one, Steve. It's not going to win me the money off you, but a cracking fish nonetheless. We're blessed with a beautiful day, and there's...
Seems quite lively.
Well, certainly is. Just absolutely love catching fish when they're like that. Brilliant, it's absolutely immaculate, that one. Couldn't ask for anything better. I'm going to show you how I put together my super effective PVA mix. There's 3 ingredients to it, and the first is a ground pellet mix with a high fish meal content. This is really nice and fluffy and very attractive to carp. The second is a mix containing a high proportion of meat proteins, and it's got a little bit of a reddish colour, which also colours the final mix. The two I add in equal proportions and blend thoroughly before adding the third ingredient, which is a dashing of salmon fry crumb. You don't need to add too much of this. It's a really potent attractor, one that's used for rearing on small fish, but carp also love it too. Once all the 3 ingredients are blended thoroughly, it's now time to add the water. Because I'm using it in PVA, I don't want to over wet it, so add a little bit at a time. And mix, just mix thoroughly, blend everything together. You don't want any lumps, but I'll come on to that in a moment. It's important to remember as well, the mix will take on quite a lot of water over time, so mix it, leave it 15 minutes, and then mix it again. Keep checking it all the while. You can also add things like oils if you want to, but I just prefer plain lake water. A little bit more water. It's really important to get this bit right, and you can make a nice compact PVA bag when the mix is relatively dry. It'll also help open out around your hook bait. That's about ready. But a lot of anglers use a maggot or ground bait riddle, but I actually prefer to use a fine flour sieve. This helps remove any large lumps and gives me a super attractive mix with minimal feed. You won't get it all through just shaking it like this, so what you need to do, just push it through. You'll see some lumps sat on top there, and that's the whole reason why we're pushing this through. This is to get rid of all the lumps in the mix. Trapping plenty of air in it helps it to break down really quickly as well. If you try one in the margin, you'll see bubbles of air coming up from the bag as it breaks down. Push all the bits through. One final mix, and you're left with a really fine, attractive ground bait. It's absolutely bang on for fishing in PVA bags. tightly compact. It'll form a ball but break apart easily, no lumps, no large particles of feed, meaning your hook bait is singled out easily. The only other ingredients I have used in the PVA bag today is a mix of pellets, and these are both 4mm and 8mm supermarine halibuts. They're a high oil content, reddish colour pellet, absolutely brilliant and super attractive. Going to take you through the sort of kit that Steve and I use on the commercial venues. First thing we're going to look at is the rod.
Right, there's a bit of a misconception when it comes to catching sort of commercial water carp. Yes, they are hard fighting, but that doesn't mean you necessarily need powerful, fast action rods to try and tame them.
Yeah.
I'm a big believer in using like short length rods, 9 or 11 foot, very, very soft action. The rod I'm actually using today is a Beachmaster commercial. It's 11 foot. I can pretty much do anything with it. I can fish straight lead, method feeder. It's ideal. It's particularly impressive when you get the actual fish under the rod top. The action's very forgiving, just results in less hook pulls, I mean, which is particularly important. There's nothing worse than playing a fish for say 5 minutes and pulling out right on the rim just because the action of your rod is too powerful.
Yeah, sure. And because it bends all the way through, it also means we can balance the kit and use relatively light hook lengths as well.
Yeah. That brings me on to the reel. The reel I've chosen is a small bait runner, 4,000 size. The reason I like it for commercials is the bait runner facility. It's particularly good for straight lead work, because what it allows me to do is cast out, tighten up, then flick the bait runner lever back. That then means if I get a bite and it's going to pull the rod round, the reel's free to give off line. Obviously once I hear the noise, I know there's a fish on, so I could be making up a cone like today. As soon as I hear that noise, pick the rod up, wind, just engage the bait runner, you're in contact with the fish. It just makes the whole sort of hook set process a lot smoother, results in less bump fish.
Yeah, got you. Also save the chance of you losing your rod and reel setup as well, should a big fish run away from you.
Yeah.
That brings me nicely onto the setup that I'm using. I've chosen exactly the same rod as Steve for the same reasons and a similar reel, but something I do want to touch on in detail is the correct filling of the spool. You'll notice here that I've loaded it right to the lip with 6-pound dragline. Now this is really important. When I walk around commercials, I see a lot of people have underfilled the spool, which impedes their casting and generally makes your day's fishing that bit harder. You might think that we take our setups for granted, but we don't. Simple stuff, but it will help you catch more fish. Well, what a fantastic day's fishing. We've both had a net full of fish each and I've certainly thoroughly enjoyed my day.
Yeah, there's been nothing really to choose between the PVA and the cone today. We've both had virtually a bite of chuck and sport doesn't get much better than that.
Well, before we slip these two back, there's one more point to conclude.
Well, I have to be honest and think, although I've probably caught more in numbers, I think you've just done me on the big fish front. So shall we call it a draw?
Well, if that makes you feel better, I'll settle for that. Hope you've learned plenty. Thanks for watching.
This episode of Fishing Gurus is in association with Shimano Commercial Rods.